In the summer of 1998, Tucson, Arizona felt like the kind of place where nothing truly disappeared. The roads were quiet after dark. People knew each other's names. Families left porch lights on late into the night, and at a small roadside diner just outside the city, 26-year-old Kristen Hart spent most evenings carrying coffee pots between tired truck drivers and exhausted travelers. Almost everyone remembered Kristen the same way. She smiled constantly. She laughed too loudly at bad jokes. And no matter how tired she was, she always talked about her son. 3-year-old Ethan Hart was the center of her entire world. Kristen raised him alone after a painful breakup years earlier. Money was tight. Some months were worse than others. But her friend said she never let Ethan feel it. Angelica Lewis remembered Kristen bringing homemade pancakes to work at 2 a.m. because Ethan wanted everyone at the diner to eat breakfast together. Maria Lee Vargas remembered Kristen carrying a small camcorder almost everywhere she went. Birthday parties, car rides, tiny moments most people forgot. Kristen recorded everything. Amy Dawn once joked that Ethan would someday grow up with more home videos than Hollywood. Kristen only smiled and said, "I just don't want to miss anything." By 1998, she had already filled dozens of small VHS tapes. Most of them were simple. ULN, Ethan laughing in the bathtub, Ethan dancing in cowboy boots, Ethan asleep in the back seat while Kristen quietly sang along to the radio. Years later, Ethan would barely remember her face, but he remembered tiny details. The smell of sunflower perfume inside her car, the way she tapped the steering wheel while driving, the silver bracelet she wore every single day. He remembered her voice more than anything. Soft, calm, safe. For a while, Kristen believed things were finally getting better. She had started saving money to leave Arizona. She talked about moving north someday, maybe Colorado, maybe Oregon, somewhere quieter, somewhere Ethan could grow up differently. Around the same time, she started dating a mechanic named David Sanchez. David was quiet, polite, older than Kristen by nearly 10 years. People described him differently depending on who you asked. Some thought he was shy. Others said he made them uncomfortable. Angelica later admitted she never liked the way David watched Kristen instead of listening to her. He always looked nervous, she said years later, like he thought she might disappear. At first, nothing seemed unusual. David helped repair Kristen's car for free. He picked Ethan up toys from flea markets. He brought flowers to the diner during late shifts, but over time, Kristen slowly changed. She became quieter, more distracted. Sometimes she stared at the diner parking lot through the windows between customers. One night, Amy Dawn asked if something was wrong. Kristen hesitated for several seconds before answering. Then she quietly said, "Do you ever feel like someone keeps showing up wherever you go?" Amy laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. Kristen didn't laugh back. A few weeks later, she bought extra locks for her apartment. Then came August 14th, 1998. The night Kristen Hart vanished. The diner was nearly empty just after 10 p.m. A thunderstorm rolled somewhere far across the desert horizon. The cooks were cleaning the kitchen while Kristen counted receipts near the register. That was when the phone rang. At first, nobody noticed anything strange. Kristen answered casually, but within seconds her face changed. One witness later described it as watching someone suddenly become afraid. Kristen stopped talking completely. She listened for almost a minute. Then she quietly said, "How did you get this number?" The line went silent after that. Kristen grabbed her purse immediately. She told coworkers she needed to leave. Fast. Too fast. Angelica remembered Kristen's hands shaking while gathering her keys. "What happened?" she asked. Kristen forced a smile. "Nothing," she whispered. "I'll be back tomorrow." Those were the last confirmed words anyone heard her say. Security cameras outside the diner captured Kristen walking quickly toward her car. But investigators later became obsessed with one detail. Just before entering the vehicle, Kristen suddenly stopped. Then she turned toward the far edge of the parking lot, as if someone was standing there. The footage was grainy, almost useless, but detectives believed she briefly recognized someone off camera. Then she drove away and vanished. At first, nobody panicked. Kristen was an adult. Police assumed she needed space. But by morning, fear spread quickly. Kristen never missed work, never ignored Ethan, never disappeared without calling. Her mother reported her missing less than 12 hours later. Searches began across southern Arizona. Volunteers scanned desert roads for days. Flyers covered gas stations and telephone poles. Then, 3 days later, a highway worker discovered Kristen's car abandoned near an isolated frontage road nearly 40 miles outside Tucson. The scene immediately confused investigators. Her purse remained inside, money untouched, keys missing, the driver's side door slightly open. But one thing stood out more than anything else. A children's VHS tape Kristen always kept in the car was gone. At first, detectives barely mentioned it, but Kristen's family insisted something felt wrong. The missing tape contained old home videos of Ethan. Oh, why would someone take that and nothing else? Police focused heavily on David Sanchez, but his story never fully collapsed. He claimed Kristen wanted to leave Arizona and start over somewhere else. According to David, she felt trapped, overwhelmed. He told investigators she had talked about disappearing before. Kristen's family completely rejected that idea. She would never leave Ethan, her mother repeated again and again. But over time, the investigation slowed, then slowed even more. No body, no witnesses, no forced entry, no signs of violence. By early 1999, detectives quietly began treating Kristen as a voluntary missing person. The emotional damage inside the Hart family became unbearable. Every night, Ethan sat beside the apartment window waiting for headlights. Sometimes he fell asleep on the floor. Sometimes he asked if his mother forgot the way home. His grandmother later admitted there were nights she almost believed Kristen might truly walk through the front door again. But weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And eventually, the town moved on. Mostly. But one strange detail refused to disappear. The diner surveillance footage. Years later, a local teenager interested in lost media uploaded old VHS recordings from local news broadcasts onto an early internet crime forum. Most people ignored the grainy clips, but one short segment included the final security footage of Kristen leaving work. The quality was terrible, blurry, distorted, almost impossible to study. Police dismissed it immediately, but online, strangers began slowing the footage frame by frame, and some users became obsessed with a single moment. Right before Kristen entered her car, she looked toward someone standing outside camera range. At first, people argued online for weeks. Some believed it was David Sanchez. Others thought it could have been a random customer. Then, one user posted something chilling. They adjusted the contrast on the footage and noticed what looked like part of a man's shoulder near the parking lot entrance. Not enough to identify him, but enough to raise a terrifying question. If someone was waiting for Kristen that night, why did police never try to find him? For years, the question sat buried inside forgotten internet threads nobody remembered anymore. Until 25 years later, a blurry face inside an old YouTube video would change everything. After Kristen Hart disappeared, the first year felt endless. Search teams kept returning to the desert outside Tucson. Volunteers walked dry riverbeds with flashlights. Helicopters circled empty highways for days. Detectives followed every possible lead they could find. None of it mattered. Kristen was gone. By early 1999, the energy surrounding the case began fading. Reporters stopped calling the Hart family. Flyers slowly disappeared from gas station windows. New crimes pushed old ones off local television. And eventually, the town stopped saying Kristen's name altogether. For Ethan Hart, the silence became the hardest part. At only 3 years old, he could not fully understand what had happened. He only understood that his mother never came home. At first, he waited for her every night. Then, every weekend. Then only on birthdays. As the years passed, memories started slipping away from him in strange ways. He forgot the exact color of her eyes. He forgot the sound of her laugh. Sometimes he became terrified that he was slowly losing her completely. But tiny things stayed with him. The smell of sunflower perfume, the silver bracelet she always wore, and the nervous way she pushed hair behind her ear whenever she felt uncomfortable. Those details stayed frozen in his mind for decades. Meanwhile, investigators kept chasing theories that never led anywhere. One detective believed Kristen ran away voluntarily. Another suspected drug involvement despite almost no evidence. Some thought she had been kidnapped by a random predator along the highway. Others focused heavily on David Sanchez. But every theory eventually collapsed under its own weight. David remained suspicious to many people, especially after he suddenly left Arizona less than a year after Kristen vanished. He moved without warning. No goodbye. No forwarding address. Detectives tried locating him several times over the years, but nothing meaningful came from it. Without evidence, police slowly stopped treating him as a serious suspect. Kristen's mother never accepted that. Every single year, she mailed Kristen a birthday card anyway, even after 20 years. Sometimes she wrote long messages inside them. Sometimes only 3 words. "We miss you." The cards always came back unopened, but she kept sending them. Online, Kristen's case became one of thousands buried inside early missing person forums during the early 2000s, old message boards filled with blurry scanned newspaper clippings and broken image links. People occasionally discussed the diner footage, the abandoned car, the missing VHS tape. But interest never lasted long. Newer mysteries replaced older ones. Threads died. Accounts vanished. And slowly, Kristen Hart became another forgotten name hidden somewhere deep inside the internet. Then came 2023. By then, Ethan Hart was 28 years old, quiet, isolated, emotionally exhausted. Friends later said Ethan spent most nights awake watching missing person documentaries online for hours at a time. He became obsessed with unresolved disappearances, especially cases involving mothers who vanished without answers. Some people close to him worried the obsession was unhealthy. But Ethan described it differently. Watching those stories made him feel less alone. One night in October, Ethan stumbled across a small YouTube channel run by a creator named Nolan Pierce. Nolan was not famous. No studio. No dramatic music. Just old VHS tapes, forgotten crime stories, and grainy recordings from the 1980s and 1990s. The channel barely had 15,000 subscribers. People trusted him because he cared about cases nobody else remembered anymore. That night, Nolan uploaded a video called Forgotten Faces, Missing Americans of the 90s. At first, Ethan almost clicked away. Most of the footage looked familiar. Old news clips, local interviews, broken VHS transfers with distorted audio. Then something stopped him cold. Near the middle of the video, Nolan included random background footage from an outdoor flea market in New Mexico, recorded sometime in the early 2000s. Children ran past carnival booths. Vendors shouted over each other. Music echoed through the crowd. The camera shook constantly. At first, nothing looked unusual. Then, a woman briefly turned toward the lens. Only for 2 seconds. Maybe less. Ethan immediately paused the video. His heart started racing so hard, he later said he felt physically sick. The woman wore a silver bracelet. Not similar. The same one. Ethan replayed the clip over and over again. The woman smiled nervously while brushing hair behind her ear. Exactly the way Kristen used to. At first, Ethan convinced himself he was imagining things. Grief can do strange things to people, especially grief carried for 25 years. But he could not stop watching. Again. Finally, Ethan contacted Nolan Pierce directly. Nolan later admitted he almost ignored the message completely. People sent false sightings constantly. Most turned out to be wishful thinking or internet rumors. But Ethan sounded different. Not emotional. Terrified. Nolan reopened the original VHS files on his computer and slowed the footage frame by frame. The woman appeared only briefly between 2 vendor stalls. But the more they watched, the stranger it became. The bracelet matched old family photos. The smile matched. Even the posture felt familiar. For the first time in decades, Ethan allowed himself to think something impossible. What if Kristen survived? The possibility emotionally shattered the family. Kristen's mother cried for nearly an hour after seeing the footage. Then came the fear. If the woman truly was Kristen, why did she never contact Ethan? Why did she look so nervous in the crowd? And who filmed the footage? Online, Nolan uploaded a follow-up video asking viewers for help identifying the flea market location. The internet responded immediately. True crime forums exploded overnight. TikTok creators reposted zoomed-in clips of the mystery woman. Reddit users began comparing old photos of Kristen to screenshots from the VHS tape. For the first time in years, thousands of strangers suddenly cared about the case again. Some people became deeply emotionally invested almost immediately. Others treated it like a puzzle. A Discord server dedicated to Kristen's disappearance appeared within 48 hours. Users started rebuilding timelines from scratch. One group analyzed vendor banners visible in the background. Another focused on weather patterns. Someone else identified a faded soda logo near a food stand that helped narrow the possible year. Then the misinformation started. Several TikTok creators falsely claimed the woman had already been identified. One viral account insisted Kristen secretly abandoned Ethan and started another family. Another creator posted heavily edited, enhanced images that made the footage look clearer than it really was. The internet turned chaotic. Ethan nearly disappeared from the investigation entirely after seeing comments accusing his mother of abandoning him voluntarily. For several days, he stopped answering messages. Then, Nolan Pierce uploaded a calmer video asking people to slow down. He reminded viewers that real families were suffering behind the mystery. That changed the tone online almost immediately. The internet investigation became more focused after that, more careful, more serious. A small group of Reddit users eventually discovered something important hidden inside Nolan's original VHS transfer. Metadata from the digital conversion showed the footage itself had been copied from an older mini-DV tape sometime around late 2003. Then another user found an archived event listing connected to a traveling flea market festival outside Albuquerque, New Mexico. The timing matched perfectly. If the woman truly was Kristen, she had potentially been alive 5 years after disappearing. The discovery completely changed the emotional direction of the case. Suddenly, this was no longer just a cold disappearance. It became something far stranger and far more disturbing, especially after viewers noticed one terrifying detail. The woman in the footage did not look relaxed. She looked afraid. People started studying the clip more closely than ever before, frame by frame, pixel by pixel. And then someone on Reddit noticed the man standing beside her. The screenshot spread across the internet faster than Ethan Hart could emotionally process it. At first, he only shared the image inside a small Reddit community focused on unsolved disappearances. He uploaded 2 screenshots from Nolan Pierce's YouTube video beside an old family photo of Kristen Hart taken in 1997. His caption was simple: "I think this might be my mother." Within hours, thousands of people saw the post. By morning, the comment section had completely exploded. Some users immediately believed the woman was Kristen. Others accused Ethan of seeing what he wanted to see after years of grief. A few insisted the resemblance was coincidence. But the longer people studied the image, the stranger it became. One user pointed out the bracelet first. Another noticed the nervous way the woman touched her hair. Then, someone slowed the footage and posted a clearer freeze-frame comparison beside an old diner photograph of Kristen. The similarities became difficult to ignore. Suddenly, people everywhere wanted answers. TikTok creators began reposting the footage with dramatic captions. Some videos reached millions of views in less than 2 days. Amateur internet investigators started building theories almost immediately. Most of them were wrong. One viral thread claimed Kristen joined a religious cult traveling through New Mexico. Another person falsely identified the woman as a missing waitress from Texas. Someone even created a fake Facebook profile pretending to be Kristen herself. The chaos emotionally overwhelmed Ethan. At one point, he deleted Reddit entirely after reading comments accusing his mother of abandoning him on purpose. But something else was happening underneath the noise. Real people were beginning to investigate carefully. A small group of online sleuths started focusing on the flea market itself instead of the woman. Where exactly had the footage been recorded? That question slowly became the center of the entire investigation. A Discord server dedicated to Kristen's case formed almost overnight. At first, only a few dozen people joined, then hundreds, then thousands. Teachers, graphic designers, retired police officers, college students, mothers, programmers, Even truck drivers who traveled through the Southwest in the early 2000s. Complete strangers began working together like a giant digital search party. And for the first time in his life, Ethan no longer felt alone inside the mystery. One user specialized in geolocation analysis. She spent hours studying mountain shapes visible behind the flea market tents. Another searched archived event websites using the Wayback Machine. Someone else enhanced blurry vendor signs hidden in the background of the footage. Tiny clues slowly started connecting together. Then came the first major breakthrough. A Reddit user named Desert Signal matched the mountain skyline to an outdoor market outside Albuquerque, New Mexico. Specifically, a temporary traveling flea market held during the summer of 2003. The timestamp lined up perfectly with the VHS metadata Nolan Pierce had already uncovered. That meant the woman in the footage may have been alive 5 years after Kristen disappeared. The realization emotionally shook everyone involved, especially Kristen's mother. At first, she refused to look at the screenshot again. She told Ethan she could not survive losing Kristen twice. But late one night, she quietly joined one of Nolan Pierce's live streams anyway. Thousands of viewers watched together while online investigators studied the footage frame by frame. People were no longer treating the case like entertainment anymore. It had become personal. Then someone noticed the man standing beside the woman. At first, most users assumed it was David Sanchez. The height looked similar, the body shape matched, and emotionally, people wanted the mystery to make sense. But another user spotted something strange. The tattoo on the man's forearm did not match David's old photographs. Then another person compared ear shapes between the VHS figure and David Sanchez. They were different. The man beside Kristen was not David. The entire investigation changed direction instantly. Online detectives became obsessed with identifying him. A former tattoo artist inside the Discord server recognized the faded design on the man's arm as a cheap carnival-style tattoo popular during the late 1990s. That clue sounded meaningless at first, until another user connected it to traveling fairs across Arizona and New Mexico. Soon, people started searching archived employee records, old newspaper advertisements, and forgotten message boards connected to temporary carnival companies. Most of the information was incomplete. Broken links, dead websites, erupted forum pages. But piece by piece, the internet rebuilt an entire hidden world that barely existed online anymore. Then, a username appeared repeatedly across old carnival discussion boards. Ruben Venzer, former ride operator. Temporary mechanic, known for moving between fairs across several states. Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas. One archived thread from 2004 mentioned Ruben being removed from a carnival after a fight involving a female employee. Another included blurry group photos from fairgrounds. The internet immediately compared Ruben's face to the man in the VHS footage. The similarities were disturbing, not perfect, but close enough to make thousands of people uneasy. Ethan became completely consumed by the investigation after that. He barely slept. Friends later said he stopped answering phone calls for days at a time. Sometimes he stayed awake until sunrise reading archived carnival forums from 20 years earlier. The possibility that his mother survived changed everything emotionally, but it also created terrifying new questions. If Kristen was alive in 2003, why did she never contact Ethan? And who exactly was Ruben Venzer? The deeper the internet searched, the stranger the story became. A TikTok creator named Lena Brooks started posting detailed timeline reconstructions of Ruben's movements across the Southwest. Her videos mixed archived newspaper ads with old Google Earth historical imagery. One upload showed carnival routes matching dates from Ruben's known employment history. The same route passed directly through Albuquerque during the summer the VHS footage was recorded. The internet lost its mind. Millions watched the theory unfold in real time. But then came another emotional crash. Someone falsely accused an innocent carnival worker of being Ruben. His personal information leaked online within hours. Threats followed almost immediately. Nolan Pierce publicly begged viewers to stop harassing random people. The investigation slowed again after that. Fear spread across the online community. People worried they were becoming obsessed. dangerous. Ethan himself nearly walked away completely. Then another tiny clue appeared. During one late-night livestream, a user wearing headphones noticed faint audio hidden beneath the noisy flea market footage. At first, it sounded impossible to understand. But after several audio cleanups, one phrase became clearer. A woman somewhere behind the camera quietly said the name Maria, not Kristen. Maria. The internet froze, because suddenly a terrifying new possibility emerged. What if Kristen Hart had been living under another identity? The theory spread through Reddit almost instantly. Users searched missing person databases for women named Maria connected to carnival routes. Others searched employment records and archived motel registrations. Someone even discovered an old 2003 festival guest list containing the partial name Maria V. Nobody knew what it meant yet, but the emotional tone of the case changed again. This was no longer just about a missing woman appearing briefly in public. Now, it looked like Kristen may have been living inside an entirely different life, and possibly hiding from someone, or trapped by someone. Police still refused to officially reopen the investigation. Detectives privately claimed the internet was creating digital hallucinations from blurry footage and coincidences. But online, the investigation kept growing anyway, because the internet had already noticed something law enforcement had missed years earlier. Kristen Hart might not have disappeared forever in 1998. She may have survived, and somewhere inside that growing online chaos, strangers were getting closer to the truth. Then a TikTok user discovered an account that should not have existed. By the beginning of November 2023, the search for Kristen Hart no longer felt like a forgotten cold case. It felt alive. Every night, thousands of people gathered online waiting for updates. Reddit threads refreshed every few seconds. TikTok creators posted theories around the clock. Entire Discord channels stayed active until sunrise. And somewhere inside all that noise, one creator accidentally found something that changed the investigation forever. Her name was Lena Brooks. Before Kristen's case went viral, Lena mostly made videos about forgotten internet history, old websites, lost forums, dead social media accounts from the early 2000s. At first, she only joined the investigation casually. But after studying archived carnival message boards connected to Ruben Venzer, she noticed something strange. The same username kept appearing beside Ruben's old accounts, Maria V76. It showed up inside comment sections from old fairground websites, sometimes attached to blurry uploaded photos, other times hidden in dead links leading nowhere. Most people ignored it, but Lena became obsessed with tracing the username backward across the internet. For nearly 12 straight hours, she searched old databases and archived pages through the Wayback Machine. Then, suddenly, just after 3 a.m., she found it. An abandoned MySpace account. Username, Maria V76. Created in 2007. The internet exploded within minutes. At first glance, the page looked ordinary. Cheap background graphics. Broken music links. Low-quality fairground photos. But then people started reading the posts. Short diary-style updates appeared scattered across several months. Most sounded lonely. Tired of moving again. Wish I could go home. Some places don't let you leave. The writing immediately unsettled Ethan Hart. Not because he fully recognized it, but because certain phrases felt familiar in a way he could not explain. Then, Kristen's mother saw one sentence during a live stream and suddenly burst into tears. Post quoted lyrics Kristen used to write repeatedly inside old journals during high school. Lyrics nobody online should have known. For several seconds, nobody spoke during the live stream. The silence itself became terrifying, because suddenly the possibility felt real. Maybe Kristen had truly survived long after 1998. The internet started tearing through every photo on the MySpace account almost immediately. Most images were blurry carnival pictures taken at night, rusted rides, cheap prizes, empty trailers parked behind fairgrounds. But one image drew everyone's attention, a reflection hidden inside a food truck window. At first, it barely looked human, just a vague shape standing near the edge of the frame. Then AI restoration communities online began enhancing the image carefully, not fake movie-style enhancement. realistic restoration using multiple passes and detail recovery. People watched the process unfold live on YouTube streams with thousands of viewers. Slowly, the reflection became clearer. A woman stood partially behind the camera, thin, nervous, one hand raised toward her hair, and around her wrist, the silver bracelet appeared again. The live stream chat exploded instantly. Ethan completely broke down emotionally. For 25 years, he had tried convincing himself his mother died quickly, peacefully, that she did not suffer for years somewhere unknown. But now another possibility was forming online in real time. What if Kristen had been alive all along? And what if nobody noticed? The emotional weight of the discovery spread far beyond Ethan's family. Even strangers online became deeply attached to the case. Millions followed updates daily now. Some viewers stayed awake overnight, helping analyze old carnival records. Others searched forgotten public databases, looking for traces of Ruben Venzor. The internet no longer felt like spectators. It felt like a giant investigation. Then came another breakthrough. A gaming forum account connected to Ruben Venzor surfaced online. The username itself looked meaningless at first. Just an old, inactive account from the late 2000s discussing motorcycle repairs and traveling jobs. But archived login data attached to the account revealed something important. An IP location, rural Nevada. Suddenly, the investigation shifted states again. Online sleuths immediately started comparing carnival routes connected to Ruben against Nevada locations from 2007 through 2009. The overlap became impossible to ignore. Then, YouTube investigators began live streaming the search process itself. Thousands watched in real time as internet users examined satellite maps together. One creator zoomed into old trailer parks outside Reno. Another compared faded road signs visible behind carnival photos. Then a viewer named Travis joined the live stream chat with a chilling message. "I think I know that place." At first, nobody believed him. But Travis explained he grew up in a small trailer park outside Carson City during the late 2000s. While watching the stream, he recognized something strange hidden in the background of one photo, a faded painted mural on a building wall. Within minutes, the live stream became chaotic. People started comparing old Google Earth historical imagery to the MySpace photos. Another viewer matched utility pole placements near the trailers. Then someone identified a broken fence line visible behind a carnival truck. Everything pointed toward the same location, Silver Creek Trailer Park, an isolated property outside rural Nevada. The internet found it before police did. That realization deeply disturbed many people watching online. For years, investigators believed Kristen likely died in Arizona shortly after disappearing. Now strangers online were potentially tracing her movements across multiple states decades later. Ethan barely slept anymore. Friends worried he was emotionally collapsing under the pressure. Sometimes during live streams he looked completely numb, staring silently while thousands of people discussed his mother like a puzzle. But he refused to stop watching, because every new discovery pulled him closer to her, and further into something darker. Police finally reopened Kristen Hart's case officially after the Nevada discoveries went viral nationwide. But even then, many online investigators noticed something frustrating. The internet was still moving faster than law enforcement. By now, people had created complete digital timelines connecting Ruben Venzor's carnival work, possible travel patterns, archived usernames, and MySpace activity between 2003 and 2009. One detail became especially disturbing. The Maria V7T6 account suddenly stopped posting entirely after February 2009. No goodbye, no final message, nothing, just silence. That silence created another terrifying question. Was Kristen hiding willingly, or had something happened to her? Online theories became darker after that. Some users believed Ruben controlled her for years. Others thought she may have been threatened into staying hidden. Few believed she had another identity entirely now. Then another emotional shock hit the investigation. Former carnival worker contacted Nolan Pierce privately during a live stream. The man claimed he remembered a quiet woman named Maria traveling with Ruben years earlier. According to him, she rarely spoke to anyone directly. But he remembered one thing clearly. She always looked scared when he got close. The clip spread across TikTok within hours. Public obsession reached another level after that. News stations began covering the story nationally. Podcasts started releasing emergency episodes about Kristen Hart. Even people who normally ignored true crime became emotionally invested, because now the mystery felt horrifyingly real. Woman may have survived for years in plain sight, while the entire world believed she vanished forever. Then, investigators searching old archived files connected to the MySpace account uncovered something nobody expected: a hidden private upload folder. Inside it sat one deleted video file, corrupted, damaged, nearly impossible to open. But the thumbnail alone made Ethan stop breathing, because the woman in the image was looking directly into the camera, terrified, and behind her stood Ruben Venzer. Then, investigators uncovered the video nobody was supposed to find. Search warrant for Silver Creek Trailer Park was executed 3 days after the corrupted video thumbnail was discovered online. By then, the case had become impossible to ignore. News helicopters circled above the property before sunrise. TikTok live streams followed police vehicles in real time. Thousands of people gathered online waiting for updates every few seconds. For Ethan Hart, the attention no longer felt exciting. It felt terrifying, because somewhere inside that trailer park, investigators might finally discover what happened to his mother. Or worse, they might prove she suffered for years. The property itself looked almost abandoned. Faded trailers sat beneath broken power lines. Rusted bikes leaned against chain-link fences. Pieces of old carnival equipment were scattered behind storage sheds. Detectives immediately focused on one trailer near the far edge of the park, Unit 14. According to rental records, the occupant was a man named Sam McGuire. But the deeper investigators searched, the stranger things became. No birth certificate matched his identity. No consistent employment history existed. Even his Social Security records looked suspicious. Within hours, online investigators uncovered what police had missed for years. Sam McGuire was not a real person. He was Ruben Venzer, another fake identity. The revelation exploded across social media instantly. People began digging into every public record connected to Ruben: archived employment forms, traffic violations, temporary work permits, old carnival payroll records. Everywhere he went, the names changed. Sometimes he was Ruben, sometimes Sam. Other times, completely different identities appeared. The internet started building a giant crowdsourced timeline, showing his movements across multiple states over nearly 2 decades. And somehow, nobody had ever connected them before. Inside Trailer 14, detectives discovered almost nothing at first. The place looked empty, too empty. No personal decorations, no family photos, no signs of normal life. Then, investigators found hidden storage boxes beneath loose wooden panels under the trailer. That discovery changed everything. The boxes contained dozens of VHS tapes, old carnival documents, fake IDs, driver's licenses with different names, photographs from fairs across Arizona, Nevada, Texas, and New Mexico. And mixed among them, pictures of Kristen Hart. Some were blurry. Some looked secretly taken from a distance. Others showed Kristen standing beside carnival trailers years after she disappeared. In one photo, she appeared painfully thin. In another, she looked directly away from the camera as if afraid someone might notice her. When news leaked online, public reaction became explosive. People could no longer deny the obvious. Kristen Hart had survived for years after 1998. The internet was right, and law enforcement had missed it entirely. Then detectives found the tape. At first, it looked ordinary. Blank label, no date, just an old damaged VHS cassette buried beneath clothing and receipts. But after forensic technicians digitized the footage, investigators realized they were watching something nobody expected to see. Kristen, alive. The recording lasted less than 4 minutes. Quality was poor. The room looked dimly lit. Somewhere in the background, carnival music could faintly be heard through thin trailer walls. Kristen sat close to the camera, too close, as if trying to stay quiet. At first, she said nothing. She only stared toward the floor while nervously touching the silver bracelet around her wrist. Then she looked directly into the lens. The moment Ethan heard her voice during private police review footage, he reportedly broke down so severely, investigators stopped the interview entirely. Because after 25 years, he was hearing his mother speak again. Kristen looked exhausted, older, terrified, but unmistakably alive. He quietly whispered several sentences. Investigators still refused to release publicly. Then, near the end of the tape, she said something that emotionally destroyed millions of people after the clip later leaked online. If Ethan ever sees this, ESELOK maze or expensive. Kristen paused for several seconds, her eyes filled with tears. Then she whispered, "Tell him I never left willingly." The internet erupted. The clip spread across every platform within hours. Millions watched it. Millions cried watching it. For Ethan, the tape shattered the final lie he had secretly feared for most of his life. His mother never abandoned him. She tried to survive. That realization emotionally changed the entire investigation. Suddenly, online communities no longer viewed Kristen as a mystery from the past. People saw her as a victim who may have spent years trapped beside a man nobody truly understood. Then, internet investigators uncovered something even darker. Ruben Venzer's false identities stretched far beyond Nevada. Using archived employment records and old trucking databases, online sleuths connected him to temporary jobs in at least 7 states. Carnival worker, mechanic, truck driver, construction laborer. Different names followed him everywhere, and each identity seemed designed to disappear quickly. One Reddit group created a massive interactive map tracing Ruben's movements between 1998 and 2010. Patterns immediately emerged. Several unsolved disappearances involving women occurred near locations where Ruben temporarily worked: Arizona, Nevada, Texas, New Mexico. At first, police warned the public not to jump to conclusions, but online investigators kept uncovering disturbing coincidences. A missing waitress from Nevada, carnival employee from Texas, a hitchhiker who disappeared outside Albuquerque. The timelines kept overlapping. Meanwhile, Ethan agreed to appear during a live stream interview with Nolan Pierce. More than 3 million people watched live. At first, Ethan rarely spoke. He looked emotionally exhausted, pale, shaking. Then Nolan carefully asked whether Ethan wanted to discuss the tape. For nearly 10 seconds, Ethan stayed silent. Finally, he nodded. The livestream chat completely stopped moving while Ethan described hearing his mother's voice again. He admitted something he had never told anyone publicly before. Part of him stopped believing Kristen was real years ago. Not dead. Just unreal. Like a dream slowly disappearing over time. But hearing her voice again changed that instantly. "She was still trying to protect me," Ethan whispered during the stream. Millions of viewers reacted emotionally in real time. Some cried openly during livestream reaction videos. Others began donating money to continue independent searches connected to Ruben's known locations. Public anger toward law enforcement exploded after that interview, especially once internet users discovered detectives had ignored multiple reports involving Ruben years earlier under different identities. The failures felt impossible to explain. How did strangers online uncover more in weeks than investigators found in 25 years? That question spread across social media endlessly, and still the mystery kept growing, because despite the tape proving Kristen survived in 2008, nobody knew what happened afterward. The Maria V76 account vanished in 2009. No verified sightings appeared after that. No bank activity, no records, nothing. It was as if Kristen disappeared a second time. Then another disturbing clue emerged online. A voice recognition community on Reddit compared Ruben's speech patterns from old carnival interviews to audio hidden in the corrupted trailer video investigators originally recovered. In the background, barely audible beneath static, a male voice quietly spoke for less than 2 seconds. The software match stunned everyone. It was almost certainly Ruben. And according to audio analysts, he sounded angry, very angry. The discovery changed the emotional tone of the case yet again, because now many people feared the tape itself may have been recorded during Kristen's final known days alive. But before investigators could confirm anything, the internet uncovered one final clue hidden inside Ruben's digital history, a secret online account linked to an abandoned email address, inactive since 2010, buried beneath years of deleted data. And what investigators found inside it would completely change the case forever, because the internet was about to uncover the final secret Ruben hid for 25 years. The final breakthrough began with a deleted YouTube account nobody was supposed to find. After weeks of non-stop investigation, internet sleuths had become obsessed with tracing every digital footprint connected to Ruben Venzer. Old usernames, forgotten emails, archived forum accounts, broken links buried deep inside dead websites. Most discoveries led nowhere. Then, a small online data recovery group uncovered something strange connected to one of Ruben's old email addresses, an abandoned YouTube channel created in 2009. The account had already been deleted for years. No public videos remained, no profile photo, no visible activity. At first, it looked useless, but internet archivists managed to recover fragments of metadata connected to several deleted uploads. And one detail immediately terrified investigators: GPS coordinates, hidden location data connected to a private upload from early 2010. The coordinates pointed toward an isolated desert property outside western Nevada. Miles away from towns, miles away from highways, empty land. The internet discovered the location before police publicly acknowledged it. Again, by then, public obsession with Kristen Hart's case had reached unbelievable levels. Live streams analyzing the metadata drew hundreds of thousands of viewers at once. Reddit threads updated faster than moderators could control them. People everywhere felt the same terrifying thought growing stronger. The internet was getting close to the truth. Detectives quietly searched the desert property 2 days later. At first, nothing looked unusual. Dry ground stretched endlessly beneath broken fencing. Pieces of scrap metal sat half buried in dirt. An old trailer foundation remained near the edge of the property. Then, cadaver dogs reacted near a shallow depression behind the foundation. The livestream community following the search exploded instantly. For several horrible hours, nobody knew what investigators found. Then the leak came. Human remains had been recovered. Ethan Hart reportedly collapsed after receiving the phone call. For days afterward, the family waited for DNA confirmation while millions of strangers online waited beside them emotionally. Some people who followed the case admitted they could barely sleep anymore. Others said they checked updates every hour hoping the remains somehow would not belong to Kristen. But deep down, most people already knew. The confirmation arrived 6 days later. The remains were Kristen Hart, 25 years after she vanished from Arizona, 20 years after she appeared frightened inside the flea market footage, 15 years after recording the hidden VHS message to Ethan. Kristen was finally found. The emotional reaction online became impossible to describe. People cried during live streams. Comment sections filled with messages from strangers saying they felt like they personally knew Kristen. Even experienced investigators admitted the case affected them deeply, because the internet had not simply solved a mystery, it had given a missing woman her identity back after decades of silence. As detectives rebuilt Kristen's final years, a horrifying picture slowly emerged. Investigators now believe Ruben Venzer controlled Kristen for years while moving constantly between temporary carnival jobs across the Southwest. Every few months, the identities changed. New names, new towns, new jobs, new trailers. The movement itself may have been part of the control. Kristen never stayed anywhere long enough to build trust or ask for help safely. But investigators also discovered something else. She repeatedly tried to escape. That revelation emotionally destroyed Ethan more than anything else. Because hidden inside archived email servers connected to the Maria V76 account, forensic investigators recovered dozens of unsent draft messages. Most were incomplete. Some contained only a few words. Others looked like emotional breakdowns typed late at night and never sent. But one message stopped everyone cold. The draft was never addressed to anyone directly. No recipient, no subject line, just a single sentence typed sometime in late 2008. I still think about my son every day. When the sentence became public, millions of people shared it online within hours. For Ethan, it became the final proof that his mother never abandoned him. Not once. Investigators eventually pieced together what likely happened during Kristen's final years. At some point after 2008, she may have attempted another escape. Detectives believe tensions between Kristen and Ruben became increasingly violent near the end. The exact details remain unclear. Some answers likely died with Ruben himself, because shortly after the Nevada discoveries went public, authorities uncovered another shocking truth. Ruben Venzer had not disappeared years earlier. He fled to Mexico under another false identity. By the time investigators finally tracked him down through immigration records and old employment databases, he was already dead. A heart condition reportedly killed him several years before Kristen's remains were identified. There would be no trial, no confession, no courtroom answers. That reality left many people emotionally devastated, especially Ethan. Minuted by Weather or Planet. For a long time, he believed confronting Ruben might finally bring closure. Instead, the internet solved the mystery after the only person capable of fully explaining it was already gone. Public anger exploded after that. People demanded to know how online communities uncovered more evidence in a few months than law enforcement did across 25 years. Old interviews with detectives resurfaced online. Viewers compared ignored clues against discoveries made by internet investigators. The missing VHS tape, the carnival connections, the fake identities, the diner surveillance footage. So many clues had existed for years, but nobody connected them together until thousands of strangers online started working collectively. Even experts studying the case later admitted something unusual happened during the investigation. The internet itself became part of the search party. Programmers analyzed metadata, fought for, artists restored damaged images, archivists recovered deleted pages, gamers traced usernames, mothers recognized emotional behaviors in Kristen's videos, truck drivers identified carnival routes. Complete strangers emotionally carried the case forward together. Nolan Pierce's original YouTube upload eventually passed 40 million views. The blurry flea market footage that once looked meaningless became one of the most analyzed true crime clips on the internet. And inside that footage sat the detail that changed everything. A frightened woman touching her silver bracelet while trying not to be noticed. In the months after Kristen's identification, Ethan slowly began speaking publicly again. He appeared in one final live stream with Nolan Pierce nearly a year after the investigation first exploded online. This time he looked calmer, still grieving, still exhausted, but different. Behind him sat framed photographs of Kristen recovered from family boxes after the case ended. At one point during the stream, Nolan quietly asked Ethan what he wanted people to remember most about his mother. Ethan looked down for several seconds before answering. "She kept trying to come back," he whispered. Then he added something that millions of viewers would later repeat online for years. "The internet gave my mother her name back." Weeks later, Ethan and Kristen's mother visited her grave together for the first time. Someone left a small silver bracelet beside the flowers. No note, no signature, just the bracelet. Online, complete strangers held digital memorial streams using Kristen's recovered home videos. People who had followed the case from the beginning watched together in silence while Ethan laughed as a child inside old VHS footage. For many viewers, the ending felt emotionally impossible. A woman vanished in 1998. The investigation failed. The world forgot her. But decades later, strangers online noticed what everyone else missed. A blurry reflection, a hidden account, a deleted video, a forgotten username. Tiny digital clues scattered across the internet slowly led back to Kristen Hart. And in the end, the truth was heartbreaking. Kristen never stopped thinking about Ethan. She never stopped trying to survive. And she never willingly disappeared. For 25 years, the world believed Kristen Hart disappeared without a trace until the internet found the truth she never stopped trying to leave behind.